Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. Apologies, I'm a little bit late. I had some technical issues, so I'm here now. Hope you're all very well, and I hope my audio isn't too loud. It seems to be a little bit loud. Let me adjust that. Mic is a little loud. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So hope you all had a wonderful week. Hope you're ready for the weekend. So cover a few stories tonight. Hope you're all very well. So has Putin lost his mind? I want to cover an issue on AI jobs. Is AI going to replace people? Stop the boats. Of course, the government is doing a deal with Germany, which may stop the boats or may not stop the boats. Michelle Mone is back in the news over... can we reduce the volume? Let me see. Ann Whittem got to you. AI is trying to take over. It certainly is, yes. And a ban on fake... nude fakes or fake nudes, something like that. We're going to get to that a little bit. Stop the super yachts, exactly. So I want to touch on this story first of all. Putin vows no more wars if West treats Russia with respect. Okay, he's like, honestly, this time we will not go to war with Europe. So it says here, according to the BBC, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that there will be no more wars if after Ukraine, if Russia is treated with respect, and claims that Moscow is planning an attack on European countries are nonsense. Well, he said back in 2022 that he had no plans to invade Ukraine, and then he had his three-day military operation. In a marathon televised event lasting almost 4.5 hours, he was asked by the BBC's Steve Rosenberg whether there would be any new special military operations, Putin's term for the full-scale war. There won't be any operations if you treat us with respect, if you respect our interests, just as we've always tried to respect yours. Yes, okay. His remarks were in line with recent comment made, in which he said Russia was not planning to go to war, but was ready right now if Europe wanted to. He also added the condition, if you don't cheat us like you cheated us with NATO's eastward expansion. He has long accused NATO of going back on the alleged 1990 Western promise to the then Soviet Union Mikhail Gorbachev. Before the fall of the Soviet Union, Gorbachev later denied the remark had been made. So Putin is inventing stuff that former Russian leaders had promised or agreed to. Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. Wish I was that late in bed. Thanks, Brad. And we have another one from Brad. Thank you so much, Brad, once again. Putin saying that there will be no more wars is like Boris Johnson telling his wife if they've got enough children. Well said, yes. We can always trust what Boris Johnson has to say. So is Putin being honest on this occasion? I think it could be a case that he realizes that maybe the operation in Ukraine is coming to an end, and perhaps he wants to reach out to the West and rebuild relations. Should they trust him? Of course not. But it could be a realization that the situation in Ukraine is not going his way. Allegedly, Russia is losing 1,000 soldiers a day, and they have thrown everything into that battle, and the Russian economy is on its knees. So the best way out of this for Russia would be to end the sanctions on the country and to start pumping oil and gas into places that have cut it off. So in Europe, they have dramatically reduced the importation of Russian fossil fuels. The only two countries really that in Europe that are still extracting or which are still buying Russian oil and gas is, of course, Hungary and Slovakia. two countries which have favorable relations to Putin. So, of course, Putin would like to thaw the relationship with the European Union and, of course, get Russian oil and gas back into Europe. And, of course, there are countries in Europe that would be happy with that. But, of course, we would need to see the situation in Ukraine resolved. And perhaps this is some desperation from Putin. Once again, you can't trust the guy. Remember, in 2022, he said that he had no plans to invade Ukraine, even though he was massing soldiers on the border. So he's not someone to trust, of course. For example, a little bit more on that. This is what Putin had to say with the English translation.
And if we were to join our efforts with European countries, Russia and European countries, our joint GDP would be higher than the United States. Of course, this is all theoretical, but it is quite obvious. The fact is quite obvious that unifying and complementing our abilities, we would thrive instead of fighting each other like you are doing.
Like you are doing? Okay. So it's Europe that invaded Russia, is it? It's not the other way around. So once again, I think this guy is pretty desperate. He wants this war to end, but he wants to be able to sell something to the Russian people. Otherwise, he'll be enjoying some tea or having an accident involving a window himself. So he realizes that if this is not brought to some sort of reasonable conclusion, he will be for the chop. He understands the reality on the ground, and the situation in Russia is pretty desperate. This sounds like desperation to me. It doesn't sound like somebody in a strong position. Of course, always blaming the other side, but he has knackered Russia. He has, yes. The economy is on its knees. Before the war, the size of the Russian economy was about the size of Spain. Now it's about the size of Greece. So he's pumping a huge amount of the wealth of the country into the war effort, and it's going nowhere. Weapons are being destroyed on a daily basis. Tanks, artillery, everything that has been thrown into this war is not really turning the tide, and he can't maintain this indefinitely. He doesn't have the economy to this is not like the United States in Vietnam, where they eventually had to go, but it wasn't economic reasons; it was political reasons. They ended up leaving Vietnam. Russia is in a quagmire here, and they don't have the military clout, and they don't have the economic clout to continue this. But once again, this guy is not to be trusted. Doesn't mean that if he's reaching out for peace with Europe that he actually really believes in that. He just wants to save his own skin, I think. Let me read some of your comments, guys. Melanie, he'd have to wrestle the orange one for that. What was that about? Trump's bullshit and bollocks are the only thing properly propping this SOP up. Yes, SOB up. Nothing going their way except their way. Last thing he said said about Europe will disappear. Yeah, he said recently that Europe would disappear. Oh, I missed Alistair's message. Apologies for that. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I don't see it on the screen anymore. Viper, thank you for that comment at the beginning. Oh my God, it's nearly 3 years, 2 months away now. And you've been on Discord for so long. Well done. Killer, can you rewrite Alistair's message in the chat so I can read it out? I didn't see it. Apologies. My tool is not showing Alistair's message anymore, unfortunately. Every week he says he's going to nuke Britain. Still, don't tempt him, okay? Don't invite it, Bill. Alistair has changed his name to Viper. So, sorry, I saw it now. Viper Scott. Okay. So let's move on. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's a real concern about jobs disappearing as a result of AI. So I wanted to show you this story here.
When will AI be able to run entire businesses for you? When will we see a billion-dollar company operated by just one person? Or better yet, 0 people, it's entirely managed through AI? That's the question that we're going to look at today. Earlier this year, there was a benchmark that was started that was trying to test exactly that. How close are we to these autonomous AI agents running businesses on their own? The benchmark simulated...
Okay, so imagine a situation where an AI can run a business on its own. This is what this guy is talking about here.
Running a business, but there were also real-life counterparts to this at, for example, Anthropic headquarters, where Claude, or Claudius as he styled himself, ran this snack bar and kiosk with various drinks and snacks, and you were able to purchase it on your credit card. They also launched something similar at XAI with a Grok called the Grok Box. Since then, Anthropic expanded this to New York and London, and as of today, it's also at the Wall Street Journal headquarters. This might be my favorite benchmark for so many different reasons, but at the core of it, we're trying to determine how quickly we should prepare for this AI economy. Is it 1 year away? Is it a decade away? If you wanted to add AI to your business, what does that mean? Or if you're worried about automation, how do you prepare for this wave? So that's what we're covering today. I also managed to get a hold of 2 people that are at the very center of this. While there's some things that we can't reveal publicly, as you'll see, I think this video is going to paint a pretty good picture of where we are and where this is heading. And at the end, we'll talk about their latest benchmark that was just announced today. In fact, it's not even announced. They told me about it, and I might be the first person online talking about this. But their next project / evaluation / benchmark is looking into whether or not these AI agents can run a content empire. Can they provide content 24/7, interact with people that are tuning in, collect sponsorships? You're able to actually pay these agents online and negotiate various things with them. So we'll watch these AI agents build up an audience from scratch. As of today, it's 0, and we'll see if they're able to grow it. So I am personally watching this with a lot of anticipation, because while I don't own a vending machine, so I really don't care if they take over that racket, this one hits a little bit more close to home. So with that said, let's dive.
Okay, so I'm not going to go through the whole video because it's really long, but it's really interesting, the idea that content could be produced by AI. Now, we've already seen AI slop, people putting out videos of politicians saying stupid stuff or whatever. But every aspect of the economy, it seems, is going to be influenced in some way by AI or replaced by AI, workers being replaced by AI. And he's talking here about content producers, so YouTubers or people who produce stuff for Instagram. You could have an AI do all of this for you. They would do the research, they would create the content, and they would put it on. And then they would negotiate on your behalf for sponsorship deals and stuff like this. This is insane. It's not just about replacing some of the work, it's about replacing all of the work. Now, I wanted to show you this clip with Bernie Sanders, so the US senator who sent out a message to Elon Musk about all of what's happening with AI.
Hello, Elon.
Okay, well, let's down the volume a little bit with Bernie. So what's this about? So Elon Musk has come out recently and said that with AI, with robotics, what we're going to end up in a situation where we have abundance. So the idea being that if you can have AI and robots do all the work, for example, making stuff, the price will eventually come down to almost 0. So because the machines will work 24 hours a day, they don't need time off. They maybe just need a bit of maintenance or whatever, but they will be much cheaper than having a worker do that job. And that will mean that we'll be able to get to a point as the machines get better and better and faster at doing the work, you'll end up in a situation where the cost to produce stuff is extremely low. And it's, if you imagine it from every part of the production chain, the chain of production, so from the raw materials, the robots or AI work on that, then it moves to the manufacturing. All of that is automated or done by robots. The distribution, for example, bringing it to the store or whatever, and then in the store, everything is automated as well. So there are no, the fewer people that are in the chain, in this production chain, the cheaper it will become, and it will get to a stage, and this is what Elon Musk is saying. I don't fully buy into it, but the idea that everything will be available for pretty much anything, for nothing, in a sense. So what does that mean? So Bernie Sanders has a few questions about that.
Elon Musk, this is Senator Bernie Sanders. I was delighted to hear that through the rapid advancement in artificial intelligence and robotics that you are funding, you will be bringing about utopia to the world. You have told us that poverty will be wiped out, work will be optional.
Just to respond to a few things there. So poverty will be wiped out because Elon Musk is saying that there will be no poverty because AI will, because poverty is based on scarcity. Now, I don't believe that poverty is more about inequality. And is AI going to eliminate inequality? Because if you approach poverty from the idea that, well, people are poor because they can't access stuff, that's part of the problem, but it's more about inequality. Some people have lots and some people have nothing. And Elon Musk is not exactly a huge advocate for ending inequality.
Will be universal high income, and that everyone will have the best medical care, food, home, transport, and everything else.
Now, I've mentioned on the channel before UBI, Universal Basic Income, but Elon Musk is talking about something different, something a bit bigger. He's talking about universal high income. So not even a UBI, but a universal high income, which would be everyone gets a very high income as a result of all this automation and AI.
That is wonderful news. I just have a couple of questions. How will this utopia come about? If young people can't find the entry-level jobs that used to exist, and they are unemployed without income, when are they going to get the free housing you talk about?
It's a legitimate question. So if everything is going to be produced by robots and AI and automation, then how is this going to resolve the housing issue? Are these robots and AI going to build all these houses for free? Are people going to be able to access this type of housing? Will the government provide these? At the moment, they could do it, but they're not doing it. When Musk said he was on CAT, well said.
If manufacturing workers lose their jobs because robots take their place, when are they going to get the free health care you promise?
Exactly. One of the arguments being put forward by Elon Musk and others is that the cost of healthcare will come down to zero. Not sure how that's going to work, but we'll have to wait and see. And then everyone will get access to free healthcare. You'll have maybe a robot be your doctor or your surgeon in your home.
If a young nurse with kids loses her job, how is she going to get the food she needs to feed her family?
Musk would probably say, well, the food will arrive by drone and it will all be free.
I look forward to hearing about how you and your other oligarch friends are going to provide working people with a magnificent life that you promise. Because let's not forget, Donald Trump, the guy you got elected, is kicking 15 million people off their health care.
Exactly. So we have to be extremely skeptical of what Elon Musk is saying here. Because Elon Musk does not have a long track record of supporting the people that he claims to support now. He's saying, look, we'll end poverty. Well, we could end poverty today, but you're not supportive of that. We could provide everyone with free healthcare, but or you're claiming we will provide everyone with free healthcare, but now you're saying, well, not today. We don't want to do it today because that would be expensive, or that would involve taking money from the richest people in society. But don't worry, there will be no rich people in society in the future because everyone will have everything.
Doubling insurance premiums for more than 20 million, and is making massive cuts to nutrition assistance and education for kids across the country. With that track record, I can't wait to hear how your plan to provide universal high income for every American is going to be implemented. Have a nice day.
Look, when it came, Bernie Sanders has come out recently about the problems with data centers, and look, he's calling for a stop on the production of data centers, which I understand. But on the other side, if the United States stops, China will continue, or other countries around the world will continue to pump out data centers. So the US might fall behind in this AI arms race. And I don't know if that's the way to go. I'm not saying he's wrong. I just don't know if this is the right approach. But we have to be extremely skeptical of people like Elon Musk and others who are constantly telling us, don't worry, we will have a universal high income. Not sure where this money is going to come from. Is it going to be taken from the likes of Elon Musk? Is he going to distribute all this money? And then you also have to remember, this may work in the US, but what about other countries around the world? Because whoever wins this AI race, it will likely be one company or a small group of companies. And these companies are likely to be either in the US or in China. Are they willing to distribute money all around the world to make sure that everyone has a decent standard of living? Because if there's a high standard of living in the US and there isn't in other countries, then what do you think is going to happen? People are going to migrate to the US. I don't know if Elon Musk has taken that into account, because universal high income will have to be everywhere. And where's this money going to come from? When it comes to a UBI, we can tax transactions, but the UBI is a basic income. Elon Musk is suggesting a universal high income, and at the same time, everything will be free. I think we should be a bit skeptical of that. Anyway, let's move on to our next topic. So, James O'Brien, what am I saying? James O'Brien had an interesting monologue on a topic that's a
couple of statistics that still...
Let me just pause that for a moment so I'll give you an introduction. So James O'Brien was talking here about the government's plan to try and clamp down or deal with toxic masculinity, especially when it comes to young boys at school. So there have been some horrible stories coming out recently about bullying, about abuse of girls when it comes to the what's happening in teenage life. For teenagers are going through a very difficult period at the moment, and they're having to deal with new challenges that didn't really exist in the past. And one of these is the rise of what's his name? Damn, I've forgotten his name. The bald guy who's a boxer, was a fighter. Was it Andrew Tate? Yes, in Ireland he's called Andrew Tate. That's a different guy. Agreed, Max. But at least it's some pushback. Yes, on I presume you're talking about AI and Musk. Yes, Andrew Tate. Patrick Stewart. No.
Still stop me in my tracks. Government research suggesting that 40% of teenagers in relationships are a victim of abuse, of what we call relationship abuse. Even more staggeringly, more than 40%. So I think in, headline terms, we could say almost half.
Sorry, I just want to respond to Assassinator, I think it is. Is McGregor still trying to run for office in Ireland? He tried to run for president. He probably will try to run as a TD, as a member of parliament, but I don't know how successful he'll be, because he'll need a party to join. And there are some small fringe parties. Could he win a seat? Maybe, but I don't see it working out very well for him.
half of young men hold a positive view of misogynist Andrew Tate. Almost half of young men hold a positive view of a man who essentially teaches your sons that women are there to be exploited, they are measurably inferior, that they are not fully functioning or valid human beings. And your sons hold a positive view of him.
Okay. Why is this happening? I'm not a sociologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I'm just speculating here. But I think a lot of this comes down to social media, pressure on young men to conform to something like that on social media. The idea of social media also, it used to be an issue when it came to music. I don't like to blame music, but I think it's more about social media, where young men are looking at guys on social media and saying, "Oh, look at all the things they have." The old tradition of, you finish high school, you go to university, you look for a job, or that's the way your life has been planned out for you in a sense. But now you can become a TikToker, or you can become an influencer, and you can be extremely successful. And people view these people in a very positive light. Look at all the things they have. They do nothing. They don't really work. All they do is sit on social media all day, taking photos of themselves, or getting into some sort of weird situations. And a lot of young people want to be like that. Playing video games all day. That's what they think. They believe this is a way of life. And for some people it is, but it's a very small number of people. You have to be extremely lucky or have the right connections if you want to be in a situation like that. But the vast majority of people do not succeed. But it's what people want to aspire. It used to be footballers. People wanted to be a footballer for, Man United or whatever. But now I think TikToker or influencer has replaced the footballer. And because you have access to social media tools yourself, I think people maybe don't admire Andrew Tate, but they would like to be like him in the sense that they think, wow, he has everything that I don't have. And I think that's part of the problem. We also have the issue that there aren't any real proper role models today. Maybe it was the footballers in the past. Maybe there was actors that people had as role models. People looked up to, people in their community that they looked up to. But communities have been completely decimated as a result of austerity as well. I think it's both austerity, which have stripped away means for young people to pass the time, and of course the rise of smartphones and social media, where you don't need to go out of your home. And I think this has created a massive amount of loneliness. I think the core problem here is loneliness. And people associating themselves or attempting to emulate so-called heroes like Andrew Tate, not always because they admire him, but they see, well, I'd like to have the stuff that he has. And I think that's probably the biggest problem here.
Now, don't at me to tell me that your sons don't. I used to be a bit more impatient than I am now with this. But I do get it. You're not paying full attention. Your radio's burbling away in the background. You don't.
Never seen an Andrew Tate video, but he looks like a numpty. Look, you don't have to see it. It's the persona itself. It's its reputation that precedes him, and that's what people. And I think there's a sort of weird coolness if you know about Andrew Tate or you admire Andrew Tate. It's like he's a sort of bad boy for people. And of course, that's what people like to emulate, unfortunately. Viper or Alistair, thank you so much for sending out those memberships. Very kind of you tonight. Thanks so much for doing that. To Kirsty, Andrea, to Brad, to Mark, Andrew, and Andrew. Thank you so much for that.
Don't know who I am, and you think you just heard me say that all boys love Andrew Tate and it's all your fault. Of course, that's not true. I don't like the slightly smug confidence of, and I used to be victim of this. I used to suffer from this, thinking that you've got everything right, therefore you don't need to worry about it. You could have 4 children, and indeed we spoke to mothers yesterday in precisely this category. You can have 3 boys in the same family with the same influences and the same parents and more or less the same life experiences and the same schooling and the same education and very, very different outlooks and attitudes. We don't know why. Humanity itself is like alchemy. There is no objective algorithm for behaviour choice or for defining paths that children will go down. Nature versus nurture is an age-old argument for a reason. But I just want to make that absolutely clear. It is so easy, and I understand why we do it.
Thanks, Brad, once again. Andrew Tate has a Napoleon complex in his pants. Thanks for that.
We do it because it's reassuring. But it's so pointless to sort of come up with a single syllable answer or a 2-syllable, a single word answer.
No. And James O'Brien is right here. There isn't a single answer for this. There isn't a single reason why people admire Andrew Tate or want to emulate Andrew Tate and why Andrew Tate is so successful. There isn't one single thing. It's a whole range of issues. And as I said, I think part of it is social media. Part of it is lack of support for young people, nothing for them to do. A lot of young people are either playing video games or on social media, trying to be like somebody like Andrew Tate. If you ask young people today, what job would you like to do in the future? A significant number of them would say, I'd like to be a TikToker, or I'd like to be an influencer, or I'd like to be, because while in the past, most kids would say, I want to be a footballer, but they'd have an understanding that there's a long way to get to becoming successful. But they understand today instead, well, there are young people like me who are extremely successful on social media. Then maybe I just need to put out more videos or something like that, or do something extreme. And unfortunately, social media rewards the more out there, the more extreme.
Answer to a really complicated question like parents, or indeed Andrew Tate. It is going to be complicated, and some people are going to be caught up in this in ways that other people are not, and there are going to be degrees of being caught up in it. So these are statistics, all right? 15% of teenagers in relationships had suffered abuse, including being pressured into sex, being physically hurt, or having, and this is, I think, the sort of the gateway to understanding the scale of the problem, having explicit images shared online without their consent. And listen, we can even perhaps moderate the word online in that sentence and point out that it will involve boys in your daughter's class being shown nudes of her that she intended only for the eyes of her boyfriend or of one boy. I know, again, it sounds very naive, but I tried it myself. I think it worked. To the best of my knowledge, it worked. Don't send pictures of your naked body to anybody ever. But if mum and dad are doing it, new relationships, dating, you can't go on, what's it called, Tinder? We discovered a couple of years ago without having your inbox absolutely overflowing with pictures of strange men's privates. I mean, I don't know how feasible.
And some of them might even be Reform UK councillors. No, joking aside, but this is serious. Like, people of my generation, Generation X, we're sort of understanding what this all involves. But the older generations have no idea what goes on people's phones. And while in the past you would meet with people in person to date them, now everything is online, or a lot of stuff is online. So you can create a persona of yourself before you actually meet the people. And people are more open about sending images of themselves to complete strangers. This is insane, but this is the reality that we're in at the moment. And of course, those images can be shared around the internet. And then, of course, if it's in a classroom and every teenager has a phone, then of course there will be pressure on. And my heart goes out to teenagers today. The pressures that are on them. When I was a teenager, there was nothing like this. This was before, and I was really lucky. It was before the mobile phone really came out. It really started to appear mainstream in the late 1990s, the early 2000s, when everyone started to have a phone. It was a cell phone, a mobile phone, and all you could do was send text messages at that stage. my generation were really lucky. There were different pressures, but nothing to this extent. Remember Willie Rags? Willie? Oh yes, I remember. Yeah, William Ragg. Wasn't he sending pictures of his junk to people? But and these are older people. Like I don't know what. I sort of admire the guy who was watching, was it tractor porn in the House of Commons. At least it was, he wasn't doing any harm to anyone. He wasn't sending junk mail to people.
It is even in the modern world.
Thanks, Brad.
To offer that advice, to offer that caution. But you know that it is an epidemic. You know that it's a massive problem, right? The sharing of nudes is actually an offence because you are by definition underage, and therefore technically you're disseminating images of child sex abuse or child pornography, if you still want to use that slightly inappropriate phrase. More than a quarter of 13 to 17-year-olds surveyed were in relationships. So when you hear that 15% of a quarter, you get an idea of the scale. But the numbers who have reported bad experiences of pictures being shared are chilling, all of which is just there. It's just there. And it's the backdrop against which the government has announced a plan, a scheme, a fairly serious attempt to help teachers and parents and boys.
So the law needs some looking at. No way screwing kids over like this is good for anyone. No, and I agree. I think the government's approach to many things is just to ban it. Okay, what we'll do is we'll ban social media to teenagers, or we'll ban teenagers from having smartphones, or we'll ban... And unfortunately, the governments prefer the easy option, the one that doesn't cost a lot of money. And banning stuff is really, really cost effective. It's really cheap, but it doesn't solve a lot of problems. I think a lot of these problems stem from austerity. So there are no real services for young people. Young people want to do sports in the evening. They want to meet, have a chat with other teenagers. They want to do stuff, but those services have been taken away. And then, of course, if there's free time, it will be filled by stuff like social media or doom scrolling and stuff like this. Or people will look around and say, look, hey, everything is pretty crap where I am, or my life is pretty crap, but look at this guy on social media, he's really successful. And then, of course, you're going to try and emulate that. And in order to be more and more successful, you need to keep pushing the envelope.
Please overcome this very...
Like for anyone who may remember, there was a show in the late 90s, early 2000s, Jackass. I don't know if people remember Jackass. And these were people doing extreme activities. But it was always more extreme. They always had to go that extra mile in order to get the attention. And I think we're seeing something similar when it comes to social media now.
Modern problem to get through it. And it didn't cross my mind that anybody would have a problem with it. I'm such a sweet summer child some mornings. It did not cross my mind that anybody would have a problem with it. Here's the front line. I mean, the Daily Telegraph. Let me turn to the Daily Telegraph. Ordinarily, the single most bonkers organ in our islands. But on this, they can see things fairly clearly. All schoolboys will be taught how to respect women and girls to stem the rise in misogyny and reduce sexual violence.
Now, I have no problem with this. I don't think education is a great thing. But it's important that the education is about discussing things, not just a teacher standing at the front of the class saying, this is wrong. Okay, it has to be a proper form of education. It has to be engaging with young people, questioning, getting them to use their critical thinking skills. Why is somebody like Andrew Tate successful? Why is he so popular? What is he saying? What are the consequences of these actions? Why are boys in the class doing X, Y, and Z? There has to be critical thinking going on. There have to be questions asked. It has to be a back and forth between the teacher or whoever's doing this type of education and the students. It can't be one way, because it would be completely useless if it is.
To which who on earth responds, down with that sort of thing? All schoolboys will be taught how to respect women and girls to stem the rise in misogyny and reduce sexual violence. Hands up if you think that's a bad idea. Well, that's what I thought.
But
here is Kemi Badenoch attacking it. Here is the leader of His Majesty's opposition finding a problem in a plan to promote, quotes, healthy relationships. Here is the leader of the opposition claiming that the real problem is foreign men.
it's like, of course the Conservatives have to find some way of criticising this. That's all they can do. They can't come out and say, actually, this is a good idea. No, they have to criticise it. But to point to, of course, immigration, which has nothing to do with immigration. This is about teaching teenage boys how to treat women right. Once again, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know the ins and outs of it. But I think at least doing something is better than doing nothing. But of course, the Conservatives are like, hey, yeah, but what about immigrants? It's like, what?
Pretty sure that the instances of young women and girls sharing footage, sharing film, sharing photos that they massively and horribly and traumatically regret moments later with classmates or boyfriends, days later, weeks later, I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with immigration. I'm pretty sure that these girls who are in relationships with boys in their schools are not somehow victims of Kemi Badenoch's immigration fever dreams. I'm pretty sure that the 40%, the nearly half, the more than 40% of young men who hold a positive view of the vile misogynist Andrew Tate, is that the fault of immigrants, Kemi Badenoch? Is that the fault of brown people? Is that the fault of foreigners? The fact that our sons and our nephews, our godsons and our friends' children have ended up in thrall to a man who routinely promotes appalling treatment of women?
Of course, that's all they have. And Reform UK are doing the same thing. Oh, no, don't talk about British boys. Talk about foreigners. We need to keep talking about foreigners. We need to keep bringing it back to immigration because that's all the Conservatives and Reform have. You know, the Conservatives used to represent a bit more than that, but now they seem to be a one-trick pony as well. Kirsty, thanks so much for that super chat. It's like the boy in the class who pulls hair to get attention from the girl because he doesn't know what to say. Well said, Kirsty. It's about trying to be extreme in order to get attention. You know, Andrew Tate has some serious problems. I think he has some serious mental health issues that he should be dealing with. And this is not the way to deal with them. Him and his brother, if they shouldn't be in jail, they should be in some sort of asylum. We need to reopen the asylums and put these people in because they don't function in a normal society. They should not be part of a normal society. Half the people voting Reform UK could pay more taxes and also have more, and could also do more care work. Yeah. They keep saying about how we care about British people, but as soon as you bring up issues that face British people, like, I don't know, the care sector, they say, no, we don't. We need to push people who are currently on benefits into the care sector. It doesn't matter if they can do the jobs or not. We need to punish British people and force them into doing jobs that they can't do or don't want to do. Internet is too much information for young minds. I think that's part of the problem. It's not so much they don't have, and this is not criticism of teenagers. Their brains have not developed to the level where they're able to apply critical thinking skills in the way an adult would. So their minds are still growing and they're absorbing a lot of information and they're not able to filter out what's true and what's not, or they're not able to understand the consequences of certain information that's been given to them. They're not able to break it down. And then it ends up you end up with situations like as we're talking about here. That's true for a lot of adults too. Yes, no, I'm not saying all teenagers are like that, and I'm not saying all adults apply critical thinking skills. Of course, we have ample examples of that. But generally, children's minds are still developing, and they're not able to understand, like little children can't understand abstract thinking, for example. Teenagers are still going through a very emotionally complex period in their life where they're no longer children and they're not yet adults, and this creates conflicts within them. They're seeing a lot of imagery online of adults doing stuff, and they want to be like adults. Of course, when you're a teenager, your goal is to become an adult, so you're able to do the things that adults do. And while previous generations were protected from the worst things, it's now all available on something like this. And I don't know how you deal with that. Banning stuff, I don't think is the way to do it. I felt I hadn't really gained critical thinking skills until I went to university. Uni has a framework to install that. That's one of the reasons why the right hate universities, which has not seen elsewhere. Though not saying it doesn't exist. No, but huge advocate for critical thinking skills, and you're probably right. You develop them when you go to university. They're not really taught at high school or secondary school. When you're saying young, you want to be old, and when you're old, you want to be young. Exactly. That's the problem. It's always been the problem. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our next story, which of course is about immigration. So we move from one sort of immigration story to another immigration story. So UK hopes new German law will cut migrant small boats. Spoiler, I don't think it will. So ministers say that the new measures will stop people smuggling gangs storing small boats or engines in Germany before being used in channel crossings. The measures to criminalise the facilitation of migrant smuggling towards the UK, agreed more than a year ago, has now been passed by German legislators. British ministers say that this will mean gangs will no longer be able to store small boats or engines in Germany before transporting them into France to cross the Channel. So they will now move to Switzerland, or they will move to Austria, or they will move to Belgium, or they will move to the Netherlands. Like, this is what's going to happen. It will also strengthen existing UK-German law enforcement cooperation and information sharing, they say. So the Home Secretary said, together with our German allies, we're cracking down on the criminal gangs operating the illegal migration trade. I thank Minister of the Interior for Germany's strong cooperation with the UK in tackling this issue. The government is restoring order at our borders and scaling up removals and removing the incentives that draw people here illegally. Why does she keep using this term? Once again, using the wrong terms. People are not entering the country illegally. If they're putting in an asylum claim, it's not illegal immigration. But once again, you had a Conservative Home Secretary using the term illegal immigration, and now you have a Labour Home Secretary using exactly the same language. Why do they keep using the wrong language? It's just all it does is facilitate Nigel Farage and reform, because they keep saying, look at all this illegal immigration, when it's not illegal immigration. We're not talking about people overstaying visas. We're not talking about people who have not respected the conditions of their visas. We're talking about people claiming asylum, because that's the small boats. Now, the ironic thing is we may see an increase in small boat crossings if the government continue to clamp down on visas, if they continue to make it more difficult for people to bring in people from abroad through the visa system, for universities or for people to work in different sectors that are crying out for labour. Because if people can't come in via the visa route, then they'll find an alternative. And the other alternative at the moment is the small boats. So as you punish one group and you try to block them from coming in a safe route, they will find an alternative. I'm not saying everyone who has been rejected or who's not able to use the visa system will take that route. Some people will just say, oh, look, I'm not going to the UK. But this is not good for the economy. You need workers. You need people to do these jobs. And this is, this may change with AI, but at the moment, you need people to work in the care sector. You need people to work in the NHS. You can't just rely on robots or AI to do that. And if British people can't do these jobs or don't want to do them, then you need to bring people in from abroad. Out Farage, Labour's new manifesto. On immigration, they certainly seem to be doing that, or attempting to do it. Netherlands is the nearest. Maybe the Netherlands will clamp down on this as well, but you're just moving the problem around. But the problem is not the boats themselves. The problem is that there isn't a safe route for people to come in. And we're talking about 3% of all immigration is the small boats. It's not even the majority. If you ask Reform UK voters, they probably think the majority of people coming into the country would be by small boats. But it's only 3%, 3 to 4%. That changes year on year. So true, never put 2 and 2 together about university and critical thinking skills. AI is not going to pick fruit or wipe grandpas behind. No, not yet anyway. It may. Well, there are some technologies to pick fruit, but yes, when it comes to care work, it's not just the physical work, it's also the human level that is necessary, like talking to people, listening to the elderly or people who need support, making sure that they have everything that they need. An AI can't do that. An AI can't act like a human, no matter how well developed it is. And we're many years away, not saying decades, but we're many years away from AI that's able to operate like a carer today. And also, if AI is doing all of this, we as humans, we want human contact. We want to be close to people. Ethical stuff is lacking too, yes. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our next story, which is, this is an interesting one. So, do you remember Michelle Mone? Yes, the one who received a massive amount of money from the Conservatives to provide PPE through one of her companies. Michelle Mone linked PPE firm liquidated and unlikely to repay £148 million. Couldn't they seize her assets? But maybe they can't. I don't know. The UK government is unlikely to see most of the 140... What they should do is just sue the Conservative Party. The government should just sue the Conservative Party because they're the ones who gave these contracts. If you can't get the money out of Michelle Mone, then get it out of the Conservative Party. Jacob Rees-Mogg could be metaphorically, shaken from his shoes, and some of the change can fall out, and that would go to covering some of these costs, wouldn't it? Sue the Conservative Party. They're the ones who gave the contracts. They're the ones who were in charge. Anyway, the UK government is unlikely to see most of the £148 million it is owed by the faulty PPE supplier linked to Baroness Michelle Mone after the company was wound up. PPE MedPro, a consortium run by Mone's husband Douglas Borroman, was placed into liquidation at the Insolvency and Companies Court on Thursday. It follows a High Court ruling in October, which found that the firm breached a contract to supply £25 million surgical gowns during the COVID pandemic. I think these people should also be liable for corporate manslaughter, because there's a chance that some people who are working in the NHS, and this is beyond money, people who are working in the NHS were relying on PPE that did not arrive because PPE MedPro did not supply it, or when they did supply some of the material, it was faulty. And Michelle Mone and others should be held liable for criminal manslaughter, because no doubt some doctors, nurses, or others who were around the doctors and nurses operating with faulty PPE were infected and died. No doubt about it. PPE MedPro filed for administration in September, a day after the order to pay. His Majesty Royal and Customs, Revenue and Customs, is separately owed £39 million in tax. Records once again sued the Conservative Party. They have some pretty big donors. They can cover the cost, no? Records filed by PP MedPro administrators have revealed it only had around £600,000 available to pay unsecured creditors. Sure. How much did that yacht that she bought on? How much did that cost? How much could that be sold off for? And she has some nice clothes. Maybe not his suit. How much would his suit go for? A nice watch, and maybe it's a Rolex. That could, you need to take these people to town. Go in there with it. Imagine if this had been somebody who was receiving universal credit. Imagine if somebody was receiving universal credit and they had abused the system. What do you think the government would be doing? They would be going in and taking them to the cleaners. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. Brad says she exposed her idiocy by retweeting Sir Michael Take's compliment of her. Yes. So if you're not familiar, do follow Sir Michael Take on social media. He's really good. I don't know if people get the joke, but taking the mickey is another expression, is to pull someone's leg. So there's a guy called Sir Michael Take, and she didn't realize that it was a parody account. Oh my goodness! If you look at it, for more than 5 minutes, you realize it's a parody account. But anyway, thanks so much for that, Brad, and thanks for that memory. It was wonderful. But lawyers for the Department of Health and Social Care said PP MedPro was hopelessly insolvent and asked for the firm to be wound up. Despite the order to pay back the money as an unsecured creditor, it's unlikely the DHSC will recover the millions of pounds owed. Surely there must be a way to get some of this money, more of this money back. Where is this money gone? Where is it gone? What did she spend the money on? £148 million. They received a huge amount of money from the state. They must have property. They must have yachts. They must have up the nose. Maybe. Not all of it. We're talking about hundreds of millions, but that's okay if you're in the Lords. Isn't she still a member of the House of Lords? It's insane. The Cayman Islands. The UK should say we're going to declare war on the Cayman Islands unless they pay that money back. It's like, Trump is happy to go to war with Venezuela for nothing. He's claiming that it's about drugs, but in reality it's about oil. But surely the UK could go, send a gunboat to the Cayman Islands, gunboats to the Cayman Islands, and say, hey, we want our money back. We want all the information you have on Michelle Mone. You can leave Epstein, you can leave Prince Andrew for now. It's like we don't care about them for now, but we want everything you have on Michelle Mone, or we'll blockade the islands. Yes, Max, she's a member of the House of Lords, but hasn't turned up, so she's not able to claim her £300 a day. Isn't it insane that somebody who has fleeced the exchequer, the taxpayer, for £148 million is still a member of the House of Lords? Like, what do you need to do to be kicked out of the House of Lords? People have to wake up, cheap food to solve the poverty crisis. The shareholders will have been offshore, and that's the way the dividends will have gone, probably through a series of interesting structures. Now, I wonder how many other people are involved in this. Cayman 2008, Thatcher. Cayman 2008, Thatcher, 9/11, William the Conqueror. I can pretend to be here for a day or two if you need to show up and get the money. I'm not sure what that's about. Mandelson is still a lord too. The House of Lords is a joke, okay? It's an absolute joke. Guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to cover one final story before we go, which is interesting, let's have a look at this. So once again from the BBC, the UK to ban deepfake AI nudification apps. The UK government says that it will ban so-called nudification apps as part of an effort to tackle misogyny online. New laws announced on Thursday as part of the wider strategy to have violence against women and girls will make it illegal to create and supply AI tools letting users edit images to seemingly remove someone's clothing. The new offences would build on existing rules around sexually explicit deepfakes and intimate image abuse, the government said. Women and girls deserve to be safe online as well as offline, said Technology Secretary Liz Kendall. It's always important that whenever you do something like this, that it's that the government is always one step ahead of the technology companies, although I think that's impossible. It's always the case that the technology companies are one step ahead of the government. But you have to be... I think the government need to invest more in experts related to AI and technology, because there'll always be ways around this, unfortunately. And in order to protect women and girls, you need to be really on the ball here. And I think for too long, governments have been way too late to the game. Deepfake relates to earlier. It's not expanding for real. They can make it through AI. So yeah, all you need is the AI to say, well, make something like this. And they're banning VPNs in Longford. Are they banning VPNs in Longford? They will never ban them in Longford. It's like Russia in Longford. Home bargains are selling out. Selling out of date pot noodles for 20p each. Great offer for Christmas. Okay. Liz Kendall, the Grinch is here for Christmas. Yes. Counter Kev. Is that a lord formerly known as Lebedev? Yes. He's still a member of the House of Lords. How is that possible? Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your super chats, as always. Thanks to everyone who smashed the like button. I will be here for just before Christmas, so we can have a bit of a Christmassy special live stream next time. And I want to wish everyone a wonderful week, and I'll see you on... I'm so confused about the dates and times and everything. So on Tuesday, yes, I will see you on Tuesday, same but time, same but channel. We still have a day before Christmas, so hope you enjoyed this before we go.
Ireland, how are you feeling?
A very apt video about Ireland, so I hope you enjoyed this.
Feeling.
Grand, yeah.
Ireland.
Not grand.
I've noticed you keep doing that.
Doing what?
Blaming the British for everything.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
How's your drinking?
I'm getting pretty good at it now.
You're still using jokes to deflect away from issues. So we said this week we would talk about sex.
Oh, actually, we don't have to talk about that. That can be next week or whenever.
You still have a lot of repressed Catholic guilt.
Come on, it's neither here nor there. That's just another. I don't know about that now.
So you do talk about sex?
Yeah, what they do, when they do it. That's their own business. And
is this making you uncomfortable?
Well, sure, they're underneath the covers, and the diddle-yidle-dee, and the hand goes on the fiddle-yidle-yidle-do when the bacon stop.
I'm going to show you a series of images, and I just wanted you to say the first thing that comes into your head.
Yeah. The British.
Okay.
Oliver Cromwell. The Catholic Church.
Interesting.
Point.
Okay.
Rake points.
Okay. Just before we go, I thought maybe in this session we'd try you being honest for once. So I'll ask you a question and you'll tell me the truth. Like, how do you feel? You might tell me exactly how you feel. You could try that for once.
Yeah, I know, I wouldn't want to bore you. Now, what do we talk about? Like, the football. Have you seen the match last night,
bore
Bose?
me. That's my job.
No.
I'm here to listen. And I would like to listen what you have to say, and you can tell me the truth about what's going on for you, Ireland.
Yeah.
This is why you're paying me to be here.
Okay.
Great.
But the Irishman, but the Englishman, but the Scotsman.
No jokes, please.
There once was a lady from Limerick.
No singing.
To tell you about the time I was in Australia.
No stories. No alcohol. No instruments. Just please take a moment to tell me exactly how you feel. Maybe I can help you.
Choose your man, huh? What's he on about?
That's it, get out. You clearly have no desire to heal whatsoever. Get out. You want to know my diagnosis? I think you're a combination of sexual repression and denial wrapped in a blanket of songs, jokes and alcohol.
Nothing a good cup of tea can't fix.
Get out.
Very good, very good. So, before we go, we have a super chat from Peter. I take the piss. To take the piss, I would make Roy Chubby Brown a lord. Well, I'll need to look into Roy Chubby Brown. I must check that out. Thanks so much for that. So, guys, have a great weekend. I will see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.